Hi ladies, I'm just here at the ranch. I was just thinking I've already been here for over a month and it's so cool to just be a part of what God is doing here, and I'm going to make a video later on giving you an update on everything that's been going on in the past month. But I woke up with a message stirring in my heart this morning that I just need to share with you, and I hope it'll encourage you just as much as it encourages me just to be thinking on it, pondering it. I went to bed thinking about it last night, and this morning it was just, man, you know, just thinking about the opportunities that God gives us every single day to share Him. And I know in the last video I shared how I just have a stirring within me to want to share more about Jesus Christ with those that He brings me in contact with. And I just want to encourage you, I know it's scary sometimes to share our faith. It's scary to go to work or to go to school and to share about Jesus. And then I got to thinking, we don't need to be afraid. And I know I shared that in the last video, but God's given all of us talents to use for the glory of His name. And in Matthew 25, verse 14, it says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a traveling man to a far country, who called his own servants and delivers his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability." And you can continue reading the parable of the talents in Matthew 25, and it talks about what each one of the servants did with their talent. And I've really been pondering on the talent that God has given me. And I don't know what talents God has given you. That's something for you to really sit down and think about. But when He comes back again, and I believe that His return is very near, we're going to answer for those talents that He gave us. Some of those talents could be your sphere of influence at your school, at your work, in your home. So the time that He's given us here on earth, and some of us have a longer time than others, but at the end, when we stand before Him, we will answer for what He has given us. So I really want us to sit down and ask ourselves, God's given me all this time here on the earth. For me, I'm 36 years old, but the first part of my life, I didn't live for Jesus Christ. So I have a lot of that time to make up for, in a sense, because I want every minute that I have here on this earth to be used for the glory of His name. And I don't want to back down. And sometimes I shy away, and sometimes I'm just thinking about myself. And He's given me my children as a sphere of influence. He's given me my workplace as a sphere of influence. And you know what? Those of you who work, who go to school, who have children, that is your sphere. Nobody else has that influence that you have except for you. So really start buckling down and asking yourself and thinking, how can I be an influence in the lives of my children? So let's start there. For me, I want my children, I want to let them see and hear and participate in the work that God is doing in my life. So when I go to the grocery store, or we're out in the parking lot and someone comes and asks for money, I stop and I pray for them. But I don't only do that when my children are around, but it's just an automatic outflow of what I'm already doing in my private life, that when my children are with me, I just bring them right in and let them see that work. I know my daughter Abigail and I had the opportunity after a women's event at our church. There was a lady standing right at the end of the entranceway to our church with her bags of stuff. And I don't do this all the time, so use wisdom in this. But God said, pick her up, give her a ride. And of course, I had other places to go, but I knew that God was telling me to do that. My daughter Abigail was with me. So we picked this woman up. She sat in the front seat next to me. My daughter was in the back seat. We gave her a ride, and all the way over there, I was just listening and speaking to her about Jesus Christ. Well, we get to the destination, and I ask her if she wants to receive Jesus Christ. And she says yes. So I lead her in a prayer to receive Jesus Christ into her life. And before she gets out of the car, I ask my daughter Abigail to pray for her. And my daughter Abigail does. And, the woman gets out of our car, and we're driving down the road, and I tell my daughter, what do you think about that, babe? Mom, that was so cool. So just think about that. No one's going to have the influence on our children more than we do. For my son, he's older, but you know what? I don't just ask him how he's doing in school when he gets off. I ask him, how did God use you on your mission field today? Because that is his mission field. And I want him to get that in his mind. You're not just there, son, to get good grades. You're not just there to learn, but that you're there to be used for the glory of God's name. But you know what? In that, then he gets to ask me back. And this is my son's character. He asks me, well, how did you share your faith today? How did God use you? Who did you pray for? So we got to be ready for that. If we're going to ask our kids how God is using them, that they're going to come right back at us. And I want to have a response to tell my son, this is how God used me. This is what God showed me today. This is who I got to pray for today. So that's a really cool thing. At my job, I ask God, give me opportunities to share you. And he always does. If I ask for it, he will give you the opportunity. For you at your workplace, I know we're always so afraid. But you know what, ladies? We don't need to walk on eggshells. God has gone before you. He has divinely placed you in that workplace for such a time as this. So ask him, go around, pray within your heart. Pray for those hardest people that seem the furthest away from God, because I believe those ones that are the hardest, that are pushing God away, are really the closest to come. And what a testimony of God's goodness and faithfulness when that one person, that hardest person, comes to Jesus Christ. And God will use them in an even greater way, I believe, for the glory of his name in that workplace, just for you praying, just for you reaching out, just for you loving them with the love of Christ and asking for those opportunities to share him in the workplace. He's given all of us gifts. And I believe that this is probably one of the most underused things in the church today, is the gifts that God has given us. And there's always a stigma with the gifts and speaking in tongues and healing and all of that stuff. But you know what? We don't need to be afraid of that either. Those are God-given gifts, but they're not for our glory. They're not for us. They're for our brothers and sisters in Christ. So really sit down and ask God what gifts, that's part of your talents, that he's giving you to use for the glory of his name. And we never want to stand before him and say, oh, I tucked that one away, Lord. I didn't really use that one, because he's given us all a measure, and nobody's gifts is like anybody else. So just think about that, ponder upon that, and know that he has given you a very specific gift to use for the glory of his name. And you know, at the end of this message, I just want to encourage you to pray every single day that God will give you an open door to share, to use those talents that he's giving you, the time, your sphere of influence, the gifts that he's given you. Those are all part of the talents that he's given us, that he will give us open doors to share him. And that when he gives us those open doors, that we will have the boldness and the courage to share him and to not back down. I know a few years back, God told me, be an encourager, encourage my daughters. 3 times he told me through somebody else, and she spoke it into my life. A perfect stranger that doesn't know me, but I knew that God was using her to speak to me. And she said, encourage the ladies. And again, she talked for a little bit, and then she said, encourage the ladies. And again, encourage the ladies. So I know that that's something that God has given me, that he's commissioned me to do, to encourage you. So as God's encouraging me, that's why I'm making these videos. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to edit them. I just learned what a thumbnail is. But you know what? If it'll encourage just one of you, I will continue to make these videos. But I want to open this up and ask you to share in the comment section how God is using you, what talents he is giving you, and how God, share those God stories of how he's using you in your workplace, how he's using you with your children, how you're using the time and the gifts that he's giving you for the glory of his name. So I love you, ladies. Let's go out and make him known today, and just tell someone Tell someone about Jesus Christ. That one person, when you look at the talents, he gave one talent, one 5, one 10, but it doesn't matter. We're all called to use those talents for the glory of his name. So be encouraged today.